It is Thursday. It is August 10th. This is MrWarrenHayes, and that can only mean that it is time for the AEW Dynamite review right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. We're on your favorite podcast application, your application podcast of choice. Wherever you may listen to audio, I'm there as well. Hello and welcome. We're going to be reviewing the August 9 edition of AEW Dynamite. So I'm sure you're excited for me to get into the nitty gritty, because there's a lot of grit and a lot of nit to get into. But sometimes expressions and things sound better in your brain when you're about. Anyway, listen. Leave a like. I beg you, even after that thing, please leave a like on YouTube, or even subscribe, or how about a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or a 5-star rating on Spotify. Listen, all of these little things help out a great deal. And if you can forgive me for that terrible introduction, but I'm not necessarily known for my great intros regardless, right? That's a thing. So, if anything, it's part of my charm. So if you think it's charming, Dynamite last night, of course, where I'm recording this on the Thursday. We always do this the day after. I got to tell you, not a very good Dynamite. And I think there's a few reasons here that regular listeners, viewers, chums, pals might know why. I think some of you already have an idea as to why, but other things that might surprise you. But I don't think last night was a very good edition of AEW Dynamite. I really don't. And it's weird to me that we're doing this and we effectively have, after this, that was the third Dynamite before All In. We effectively have 2 Dynamites left before the big Wembley show, the biggest wrestling show in history. It's kind of wild to me that we're doing we're having such a soft flagship show like Dynamite as we did yesterday. Some things connected and so on and so on, but look, and I want to make one thing clear. I want to think about the Wembley show, because I know, look, there is a lot of discussion about how to build a wrestling show right now. Lots of wannabe promoters out there, that apparently have the secret sauce, the formula to do it. And I want to make sure, I don't think I've been super clear. I've talked about it. I've talked about it on the MrWarrenHayes show, and I believe we've talked about it on some of the review shows that I do for AEW. But I want to look, we're going to clarify this into its purest form, because there's really 2 ways to approach this. There's 2 ways to approach it, and both are fine. Both are absolutely fine, and they're complementary to each other, actually. I think the discussion around not having any matches when we're 3 weeks in, or not having a full card or a top match 3-4 weeks in, whatever. I think that's a bit of a garbage argument, and it's in the sense that I'll tell you why I think it's a little garbage. Because Tony Khan is a firm believer in the late buys, okay? When it comes to pay-per-views. The show is sold out. Well, it's not sold out, but we're going to hit 80,000. And even if we don't, regardless of what number we hit, there's 78,000 tickets sold. Let's get real here. This show is a massive runaway success. Whether we hit the 80,000 mark or not, this is tremendous. This was a show that when it was announced, there was legitimate commentary going around, people scratching their chin going, well, hell, if they're able to make 30,000, that'll be something, right? And now Now, all of these people who thought they wouldn't be able to hit 30,000, they'll never hit 80,000. Like, who cares? Whichever way you look at it, it is a tremendous success. I myself was skeptical at the 80K. I was thinking, look, if they hit 60, this is going to be a massive success for them. And I think this just goes to show two things, in my opinion. One, how strong the appetite for professional wrestling as a live show is in the year of our Lord 2023, and the appetite for AEW, how strong it is across seas. I think that demonstrates it. Let's keep this ball rolling here. I don't want to get too much into those weeds. I want to stay in the weeds in regards to late buys. Tony Khan has the data. He sees it, and it is his pattern for all of his shows, where 2 to 3 weeks, even the week of, everything sort of comes together. He sets one big matchup, and in this case, it's MJF versus Adam Cole. And we knew it was coming. The only question we had was, is it going to be at All In or All Out? It's going to be at All In. But we saw this coming. Well, at least people who pay attention and, have half a brain saw this one coming, right? I was even calling this weeks before they were doing the brochacho shit. I was saying, okay, well, they're going to do the rematch at one of the big shows. And then CM Punk at Full Gear. No, you do CM Punk and Wembley. No, you don't. You don't. I'm telling you, we're doing CM Punk at Full Gear with MJF. Anyway, I'm already going off track. Tony Khan he has the data. Like if the late buys weren't a thing, he would not be doing this tactic, I'm convinced. But he's been doing it systematically for every one of his shows. And at every one of his shows, it's the same discourse that pops up. Oh, well, geez, Luis. We're 2 weeks into the show and there's only 3 matches announced. Every single time. And yet, every single time, the shows sell. He does 140, 135 to 145 buys. 1,000 buys. 145 buys, that'd be a little more worrisome. And then, there's the argument where it's like, well, if he promoted it earlier, would it garner more buys? Maybe. I don't know. That's something he'd have to do to figure it out. But I'm pretty sure he's looking at his data and he's looking at the majority of his sales happening within the days before the pay-per-view. So he's like, what's the point in overbuilding and creating all of this stuff moving forward, creating all of these storylines and so on and so forth and angles and whatnot, if everyone is just going to buy within the last few days before the show. And I agree with them. And the show's and Wembley already is practically sold out. Like, they've made their money at this show. So again, this is, I feel what we have to get a grip on in the year 2023 is that these shows are selling out. These shows, these big shows, same thing for Forbidden Door in Toronto, they're being sold out without even one match being announced. They're just filling up. The pre-sales are going nuts. The Gen Pop sales are going nuts. Without a single match announced. That's where we are now. It's different for, if you have other shows where, the ticket sales aren't going so well, so on and so forth. That's up to the promoter to figure this out. But we're talking about, specifically now when it comes to Wembley, this is Tony Khan's MO at this point. So if you're annoyed that there's no build, that there's no matches, well, don't buy the fucking show. Am I right? Like, if you're annoyed that we're 2 weeks in and there's 3-4 matches announced, right? Something to that effect. And a couple that we're anticipating, but let's say officially, there's 4 matches officially announced, right? It's the main event, it's Samoa Joe and CM Punk. Well, CM Punk still has to accept the challenge, but the Bucks and FTR and the women's 4-way. Aren't those the 4 4 matches that have been announced so far, right? And we're 3 weeks out. If you're annoyed that there aren't any more matches than that, I don't know what to tell you. Don't buy the show, right? Just don't buy the show. If that's such an annoyance. Because at this point, if you watch AEW, if you're an AEW fan, if you follow the stuff that Tony does, this is all this is the regular pattern. And I don't know what to tell you. I can't believe Kenny Omega hasn't been announced yet. Okay, well, he's going to be on the show more likely than not. You know, what are they doing with Chris Jericho? I can't believe they haven't announced it. Again, does it matter? We know something's brewing. There's a huge rumor going around with what they're going to do with Chris Jericho. You know, it has, it involves a wrestler whose name rhymes with Bill Schmospray. No spoilers. It's still a rumor, but it's like, anyway, so that is one stance that I think is acceptable to have. It's like, who cares? Who cares whether or not the show has, less than half of the show has been announced. I can't believe they announced a match for 0 hour and there's still, who cares? I think, like, it doesn't matter at this stage. It really doesn't. But the thing that you can heavily criticize Tony Khan for doing, absolutely 100% heavily criticize him for doing or not doing, is promoting the event as a big deal. Because all the promotion that has happened for weeks now. Look, this show, when did they announce this show? In May, March, April? And then tickets were like on sale in May? Like this show has been happening. I don't want to say, let me pull this up here. Just give me a quick second. I don't want to come up as a complete doof. Not a complete one. And see, it was in May. The show was announced like, late winter, something to that effect. And the tickets, the pre-sale was in May. 62,000 tickets in that fucking pre-sale. So that's the thing, right? That's significant. The fact that this show has been in the books for AEW since May, and they have not been heavily promoting this as a huge deal, probably because they just wanted to be careful that they don't end up with an empty stadium. But once you start seeing the numbers, once you hit 70,000 distributed, maybe you're like, hey, you know what? Let's puff our chests here. Let's do one of these and flex a little, and then you start going hard. You start putting out ads. You start taking up much more time than just Excalibur saying, hey, by the way, we're going to be in Wembley Stadium. It's not a by the way. Like, he's doing these reads amidst the Collision reads, amidst the Rampage reads. No. You break off some time to say, hey, we are taking this arena by storm. We've got 70,000 people that are going to be seated in that arena. Now, in a couple of days, you'll probably be able to say there's going to be 80,000 people. Look, I'm on WrestleTix right now. As of yesterday, 79,346. There's going to be 80,000 people sitting in that arena to watch this show. What are we doing? This is ridiculous. And yet it's still like, oh, we mentioned it in passing. Oh, all that. Like, I cannot but not draw the comparison. We are already getting hammered over the head that WrestleMania is in Philadelphia next year. We already knew it, but WWE is now, they're going hard. They're doing the campaign, they're doing the videos, they're doing the songs, they're doing the whole, everything is already there. And then once we start getting into quote unquote WrestleMania season, 139 days are left till WrestleMania in Philadelphia. 82 days are left until we get the Showcase of the Immortals. They don't call it that anymore, but you know what I mean? It's like, why isn't AEW stuffing this tremendous W down everyone's throats? It's insane to me. So you can have these two perceptions and they are both valid. They don't exclude each other. On one hand, the build thing, if you're watching the show, you see what's coming. Kenny Omega said, I'm going to announce it next week what I'm going to do. Cool, let's make an announcement out of a Kenny Omega match, right? It's a Kenny Omega match. Next week, Chris Jericho's going to be in town. He's going to be hanging out with Don Callis and the G1's going to be done. I'm just saying. The G1's over by next Wednesday. Over in New Japan. Just saying. There's a lot of things aligning here. So I don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to tell you. And for now, we have legitimately we have two really hot matches on the show. We have two big matches that people are excited for. MJF versus Adam Cole. It's the hottest thing in the company right now. And FTR versus the Young Bucks. I mean, I've been in discussions where people are like, "Wow, this feels kind of cold." How does this feel cold? How does this feel any more cold than the Briscoes and FTR just coming out of nowhere? Like, I'm sorry, this is the kind of tag team match that builds itself. I'm excited for it. Like, if anything, I'm more excited for this match than I am the main event. That's personally just me with my own personal tastes coming into account here. So this all ties in to the larger point of this episode of Dynamite, where I'm like, look, if you're going to give us a soft edition like this, if you're going to give us something where practically nothing happens, where the work is so-so, and just a completely an edition of Dynamite which is completely off the rails as to what we usually get, well, at least ham-fist the fucking visuals of Big Ben and Wembley Stadium. Have people come out when they talk about All In. Everyone should always be saying, and I know it's a very WWE gimmicky thing to do, but it's still something you need to do. Yet promoters got to promote at some point. You have your guys and gals who come out. You have them say, AEW Wembley, it's the biggest wrestling show in history. We're going to London for the biggest wrestling show in history. That's what you should be saying. Instead of just making it feel like it's another show. Like it's another fucking Battle of the Belts. That's how I feel about this, about where we're at right now in this entire discussion about whether Wembley is a success or not, whether it's being well built or not. It's being well built. You have your tentpole matches. I keep explaining, the strategy, the obvious strategy. Let me run it by you again. Khan comes out with one or two tentpole matches for his pay-per-view, things that will stick in your mind. They'll be like, okay, this is exciting. This is one that I want to watch, but that you'll probably wait till the last minute to pull it up on your cable box or on Fight or Bleacher or wherever it is you buy your pay-per-views. You'll probably wait till the last minute. You're probably going to wait regardless. It's not like it was back in the 80s where people had to call the cable company, and a lot of cable companies over the weekend, they weren't picking up the phone. They have to do this in advance. Now it's just like boop, boop, boop. It's buttons on a remote. It's, fucking login credentials. You can do it anytime you want. So you get a couple of tentpole matches that'll stick in people's mind, that'll make them excited on a basic level for the match, for the show, and then you fill out your undercard. That's his strategy, and that's how he's been doing it. How much build does a Kenny Omega match need? You know, like, how much build do you need when you announce Kenny Omega on a card that he is going to wrestle? You just need, who is his opponent? That's all we need to know. That's all you need. Now, the only thing that's really weird is All Out in the meantime, but look, we're not getting into that today because we're here to talk about Dynamite. And you already know my feelings, right? I think I've made them clear. A very middling, ordinary, sometimes boring, frustrating edition of Dynamite. And you know, it's strike one when you start off with a promo segment. You know, I will always hammer this home every single time. Dynamite is at its best when it starts with a hot match. What did we get here? Well, we got the JAS doing their mandatory meeting that was announced last week. And like I said, like I keep saying, I can stomach opening with a promo on occasion if there is a legitimate reason for it to start. Like, we've had examples in the past. You know, the one that always comes to mind is John Moxley's return from his stint in rehab. That's always like the main one that comes to mind. You're like, yeah, of course you're starting the show with that, right? He comes in and he delivers a great promo, and it's short too. It doesn't overstay its welcome. He says what he has to say. He hits the bricks, and then we move on to the match. I don't think there was any reason for this specific segment to kick off the show. I don't see what was so crucial about it where they had to kick off the show with it. That's just me. Unless they really wanted to give some separation between Anna Jay in this segment and then Anna Jay with the main event. But, I mean, come on, how much separation do you need? The JAS are already in the ring. Chris Jericho comes out, the sing-along and all of that. And the gist of this thing is that everyone in the JAS is fed up with Jericho, and they're all turning on him. They all decide to quit. And it starts with Dan Garcia, who says that he changed the fabric of his being for Chris, that he's turned his back on his heroes for Chris. That was really fun. That was a good one because we saw that in story. We saw that in real time. You know, the I'm a sports entertainer line as he looks into the hard cam and all that stuff. Like that, we've seen all of it, like him turning his back on Bryan Danielson. That's exactly who he's referring to here. For you, Chris. So he's the first to just grab the microphone and I'm done with this shit, hits the bricks. Plus, he's the guy who got pinned last week, got the bat swatted across. It makes sense on top of that he'd be the first to be like, nah, I'm done. Jake Hager then says, you know, he's leaving because he has options and he liked that hat or something to that effect. Like, you know, who cares? Tay Mello quits and says she'll be champion after returning from having her baby. Anna Jay says, you know, Chris Jericho thinks only about himself. So tonight she's being selfish for thinking about herself. So she hits the bricks. Then Cool Hand Ange says that he feels like he's given Jericho everything, but Jericho hasn't given anything back. So, and passionate, good little promo by Angelo Parker. I liked it, but he hits the bricks. Menard says he owes Chris Jericho his job. Says when his wife was 8 months pregnant and he didn't have a job, he brought me into his home and brought me into AEW. Of course, he's referring to when WWE fired 2.0. What were they? I can't remember what they were called. They weren't called 2.0 in the NXT. It doesn't matter. It's best we forget. And he says he understands why the people he came up with, like Eddie Kingston and Kevin Steen, just gave me a little shiver there. He understands why those people hate Jericho's guts. Kingston is probably legitimate. But Kevin Steen, that's absolutely storyline. So you see, like, again, the canon of pro wrestling. Am I right, fellas? Sammy Guevara is there. He's wearing the Inner Circle patch, which I thought was a nice touch. And he says he's loyal and he's not going to walk out because Chris Jericho is his friend. And he says deep down, he always thought Chris Jericho would do the same for him, always stand by him because they're friends. Chris has a lot of stuff to work out. A lot of stuff he has to work through, and he hope he does. And if he does, maybe he'll still be here. So Jericho's left alone. Then Chris Jericho is backstage with Renee Paquette. Don Callis shows up, and Jericho says he has an answer for Callis as to whether or not he's joined the Don Callis family. Again, I still don't see what, it's a very small family so far. There's like what? But I mean, look, you can have one child and still be a family. I'm not trying to be a proponent, of the nuclear family above all else. I'd be, I'd be very hypocritical of me to do so, in fact. But, look, I'm getting off track again. Basically, this is all going to be settled up next week on Dynamite, and we'll probably have the Wembley match set there. I thought this, again, like I said, outside of the fact that I don't think this necessarily warranted opening the show with, I thought it was a good segment. I think everyone looked pretty good in the promo off, some better than others. But I think everything that this needed to do was done. Everyone walked out. Chris Jericho looking dejected. He did a very good job looking morose and downtrodden. He didn't look like his usual happy-go-lucky Chris Jericho self. So good for him. But other than that, I enjoyed it, but I really don't think that this was let's kick off the show material kind of thing. I really don't. But then again, this was a fucking show filled with a lot of fucking nonsense and talk. So, matches took a back seat last night, if we're being honest with each other. The matches were absolutely secondary to everything else. You know what I think is happening next week? I'll tell you what I think is happening next week. I think the JAS, the former members of the JAS, all become members of the Don Callis family. And the battle lines are drawn very clearly. And there's one last surprise for Chris Jericho. One last member of the Don Callis family that is going to pop in. And that is a guy whose name rhymes with Shrill Bot Spray. Warren, are you saying that Chris Jericho is going to have a late year run in New Japan? Yeah, I kind of do. I think so. I think he will. Again, getting off topic. So at this point, I'm like, okay. Hopefully, we'll get the Hardy Boys Young Bucks match out of the way quickly. And I was served with that, where the Young Bucks defeated the Hardys. Look, I don't know who's still excited about Hardy Boys matches in 2023, whether it's against the Young Bucks or anyone. The Hardy Boys are a rough watch now. Matt specifically, I think he's banged up, and he's stiff. And I'm not saying he works stiff, like he's like a board, like a fucking 2x4. He's stiff. He's not supple in his movements anymore. He's not smooth. He is what he is. And Jeff just comes across as a free spirit. Jeff is like, I'm going to do stuff and I'm going to go home. But having a good time doing it, but he doesn't come across as, his stuff doesn't feel tight. It just feels, hey, I'm going to do all these things, And look, if you're excited at the idea of the Young Bucks and the Hardys having matches, they've had a previous match in AEW, but we've had the seminal Young Bucks Hardys match at Supercard of Honor 11. That's and it was a ladder match on top of that for you ladder match sickos. And if you want to go watch that, I mean, that is a legitimately great match. And that's really all we will not be able to recover that magic, not at this stage of the career of the Hardys, for all reasons that we already know, because of injuries, because of personal situations. We all know why. So I just wanted this out of the way. And you know what? Look, there was a lot of mistimed spots in this match, not just by the Hardys. The Hardys double team specifically, they're off sync. When Matt and Jeff, they run through their singles hits, they're fine. But when it's time to do double team stuff, I don't know, they're just a little off. I thought the final stretch was good. I love the Bucks doing a 3D, a one and done. I love that. Just to get, just to annoy all the right people. And I will always respect the hell out of the Young Bucks for doing that shit. I cannot emphasize that more. Dual twists of fate. Jeff gets the Swanton. BTE trigger for the win. I've said my piece. After the match, Nick gets on the mic, calls out just says FTR, and then the music hits and FTR come out, and then they stand nose to nose, and Nick says, "All in," and it's like, okay, we're all grunting now. It kind of felt out of place for the Bucks too to do that kind of stuff. You'd think they'd be a little smarmier, but listen, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed that the little segment. It's fine. FTR comes out. That was off. So it's official. And that's already highly on my anticipated list. I've got very high expectations for that match. Then we learn another match for All In. Are you ready for this? It's a tournament. Not exactly a tournament, but we're going to have a tournament to decide who is going to compete in Wembley for the AEW World Women's title. Oh, so we're going to build ourselves up a contender for, no. We're just going to have a bunch of elimination matches. We're calling this a tournament when in fact, it's just a bunch of elimination matches to build up a fucking four-way. First of all, what is the point? What is the point? You see all the winners already. Look, this is the tournament. Right? Shida versus Anna Jay, which was happening last night. Saraya versus Blue Sky this Friday on Blue Sky. I'm on the app a little too much, maybe. Sky Blue this Friday on Rampage. Then we have Britt versus the Bunny on Dynamite next week. And Toni Storm gets a bye because she's a former world champion and also a heel. I know some people are annoyed by this. I don't care. I don't give a shit. This works. And Toni is in this phase where she's like, I need to be respected. Do you still love me? It's like, yeah, be a bitchy heel. I'm okay with this. It's fine. But tell me you don't see the winners here. Like, just fucking who cares? I can't possibly care less in regards to anything else than a four-way, than a tournament, eliminator matches to put four women in a championship match at Wembley Stadium. Can we just stop with the tournaments? I think if they had called it anything else than a tournament, it'd be fine, but they're calling it a tournament, so I'm sick of it. I'm sick of tournaments. I'm sick of tournaments, Tony. Tony, I am sick of tournaments. Because your tournaments end up being meaningless. Keep the Owen. The Owen's great, but for the rest, why can't we, and I say we, AEW, why can't we just build challengers for these titles? Why can't we just heat up someone, do it the old-fashioned way, Mid-South Tony, while the champ is in a program with a challenger, have another challenger being heat up in the meantime, beating up mid-carders, so that when the top program is over, we've got someone we could just slide in naturally and everyone goes, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. No, we have to have these fucking battle royals and tournaments. We got an eliminator tournament. We got the, like, I don't understand why we can't just build people anymore. And I don't know why we're having a 4-way, which is one of my most loathed matches. And I couldn't give a shit as to the great long-lasting legacy of 4-way women's matches in AEW. I hate them. I hate 4-ways for championship matches. It stinks. And it's lazy. Tournament to fill up a 4-way. What the fuck are we doing? At the biggest show. Now, of course, this probably wasn't the plan. I'm sure we're all very much cognizant of the fact that that Jamie Hayter was probably going to be involved, and it breaks my heart, probably not as much as it breaks hers, to not be able to compete on the card. But Jesus Christ, Tony, how long have you known she wasn't going to be in there? And this is your strategy. This is your break glass situation here. It's like, well, this is the best you could decide to come up with. Like at some point, we have to stop making excuses, especially when there's gobs of people in that roster and backstage who could be positioned to do stuff, and backstage people who could be proposing some creative. Like, how can Tony, like, all of these creative people that they have backstage, all these producers, all these people in the room now, they're all there supposedly to help Tony get through the booking stuff and make sure everything falls into place. And are you telling me that all of these minds together decided to come up with the least interesting thing for a title? This was it. This was the least. This is what all this brain trust came up with, and they decided to call it a tournament on top of that, where we all, it's not as much the idea of a tournament. It's just the idea that we're not building any challengers. We're not building anyone up to be like a singular person that can take this person out. It's like this. It's basic stuff. And if we'd have these things happen once every 6 months, twice a year, it wouldn't be so. But they happen all the time now in AEW. They happen all the time between the Battle Royals and the tournaments. Why aren't we heating people up? Why aren't we heating people up? Come the fuck on. And you want to know what's starting to take shape in my brain too? And I don't want to scare anyone necessarily either. But because I'm trying to bring some kind of to reconcile this decision versus having Toni Storm drop the title 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. I'm trying to reconcile these two things. So, but the only thing I see here is that they had Toni drop the title so she wouldn't have to feud with her stablemate Saraya, because now that you have Jamie out of the picture, well, Saraya is the only logical shoe-in to have a hometown girl, right? So they didn't want Tony to feud specifically with Saraya in order to have Saraya win the title in the UK. Isn't this what's starting to look like? And then you can protect Tony, you can protect whoever the fuck else you want. Britt. Someone's going to take a pin here. And then you can also, in the guise of a four-way, you can smoke and mirror Saraya's in-ring as much as you like. This is the scenario that's starting to come to pass in my brain here. But let's not call it a prediction. Let's move on. And you see, and then from there we get another fucking comedy vignette between MJF and Adam Cole. And I'm resolute. I have not budged. I don't think this was funny. Outside of the idea, I will nuance this, outside of the idea of MJF destroying children with dodgeballs, which I thought was on point, especially that one kid was on a phone and she, like the slow-mo, like she probably got it the best, right? She got it right on the face and you could see like the cheek meat sort of ripple. And that was a great shot. But outside of that, I hate these. I hate these particularly because the in-ring stuff they do and the stuff they do with interviews backstage helps promote their story so much better and in real time and in ways that are much, much more interesting and palpable than these attempts at comedy that they're doing. This was annoying. And we're going to have proof very shortly, once again, that the in-ring stuff is so much better. I don't know why they insist on doing these vignettes. Next is a Blackpool Combat Club promo where Claudio takes credit for injuring Pac. Then we get the FTW title in FTW Don't Say ECW Rules match. Jack Perry defeated Rob Van Dam. This just might be my match of the night. I mean, there wasn't another match on the card that made me, that got me going. And it wasn't that great, it was a good match and a perfect use of Rob Van Dam, but there's not another match on this card that made me feel the way this one did. It was like, oh shit. Because look, Rob Van Dam, like I said, good use of him, great use of him. He was there to play the hits. And it just so happens his hits require some effort, some acrobatics. So you're seeing some good work here. He does the twisting leg drop over the rail. What a fantastic spot that was too. That landed hard. That was great. So you're looking at that and you're like, okay, well, RVD's here to play. And he does the hits, the Van Terminator, the Rolling Thunder, the split-legged moonsault. Split-legged moonsault wasn't super smooth, but nonetheless. Bryce here eats a chair shot. RVD throws Jack off the top rope onto a table onto the floor. Lands the 5-star frog splash. Bryce is still out. Aubrey rushes in, but she's in a little too late. She doesn't make the 3 count. Shot to the no-nose by Jack. He gets the win over RVD. Like I said, and he's gassed, right? RVD's gassed. But that's it. That's fine. That's all you need. I wasn't expecting a 20-minute affair. It's Rob Van Dam. He's got his aura, his presentation. It works perfectly into the story here with Jack Perry coming out with Jerry Lynn gear. Like everything works. Everything connects. It's fine. And he comes in and he does his stuff. And everyone is happy. He comes out to Pantera. Everyone is just in a great mood. And he was gassed after, but Christ, he landed all of his classic spots. I think we just didn't see we saw Van Terminator, but we didn't see a Van Daminator, if I'm not mistaken. That's about it. You know, that's all you need at this point from an ECW act in 2023. Come in, do the hits, go home. Put the new guy over. I'll tell you what, Jack Perry's heel mannerisms, his heel persona, starting to grow on me even more. I liked his mannerisms here. He's getting into it. He's starting to feel it a lot more. I'm telling you, look, at this point, if he can get his character work together and his promo work together, this might actually develop into something. Because look, Jack always brings it in the matches. Jack is a very good professional wrestler. Big match Jack. You know, he took the big bump here off the table. Didn't have to in a silly little match like this, but he did. His wrestling instincts are great. Like, the only thing that's really holding him back from true superstardom is personality. It's character work. That's all it is. Anyway, I enjoyed it. Match of the night. We get Renee with the Lucha Brothers backstage, cutting a promo for their match. That was fine. Then MJF and Adam Cole hit the ring. MJF plays up the crowd, suddenly saying that the Midwest is his favorite place in the entire United States, whereas, you know, he has been on record, and yeah, he plays that up. There's tape going around saying that I hate the Midwest, and may God strike me down when I say I love the Midwest or something like that, and then he cringes, and even Adam Cole goes, ugh, and then they turn around and say, hey, we're still alive. He thinks Adam Cole wants a promo battle for their upcoming match, so he's all about it. He's ready for it, and he drops this golden line to Adam Cole saying, "You're so skinny and ghostly white that if this were the 80s, Hogan would have snorted you." Big pop from all the way in Warren Hayes headquarters. I'll tell you what. Adam Cole convinces MJF, though, to challenge for the Ring of Honor titles at 0 Hour at Wembley against the Aussie Open, and MJF finally agrees, only because he's his brochacho and our scumbag. So it's interesting, very interesting, this little wrinkle to the story. Well, let's finish the thing here. Roderick Strong then comes out. He's backstage. He's going, Adam! Adam! I'm like, oh, he's angry. What range? What range of emotions Roderick Strong has? And he says, you know, I can't believe, Cole, you're doing this. And then MJF just eviscerates Roderick Strong here, telling him to get over himself, basically. Tells him to go home, run up the stairs, slam the door, jump in bed, cry into your Hello Kitty pillow, listen to some Taylor Swift, and shake it off, you bland bitch. Who cares if MJF is a heel or a baby face? If anything, this babyface run, I'll tell you what, this babyface run is making me love MJF much more, making me see things that are just incredible. How much this guy is the absolute total package in pro wrestling today. Rod asks Adam Cole if he's gonna stand there and let MJF talk to him like that. And then the Kingdom was right about him. He was never really Roderick's friend. And then the Kingdom come out and they embrace Roddy, give him a big hug. And Cole shoves MJF after this, saying, you know, you shouldn't talk to Roderick like that. He's still my friend and you're my friend. Then Cole realizes, then there's a little tension. Cole realizes he came in a little hard and he's like, he apologizes and they hug it out. You see, this is much better than fucking trampoline night with Adam Cole going, look at me, MJF, look at me, Max, look at Alpha. Like, this is so much better. This is not a waste of time. This is compelling. This is good. It's well done, well produced, well put together, advances the story. What does the other shit do? So now I'm starting to think that Adam Cole is not turning on MJF in the main event. He's turning on MJF after they lose to Aussie Open. He turns on him and he joins the Kingdom with Roddy, and then the main event. So they do the turn in the pre-show, and in the main event, we have a full-on heel. We have a Wembley crowd who want to tear the head off of Adam Cole. Adam Cole wants to wear down MJF. I think this is all part of the plan. They're going to lose the titles. It's going to piss off Adam Cole. And we're done. I think that's what's happening. This was good. One of the brightest spots on the show. Blackpool Combat Club defeated the Lucha Bros. Another match where the work was fine, and stuff was okay. But things don't connect. Things felt a little off, weren't quite smooth, Look, even Claudio was having an off night. What the hell's going on? Claudio has trouble lifting Rey Fenix up on his shoulders. Like, superhuman, inhuman, Swiss gentleman, Claudio Castagnoli is having trouble lifting Rey Fenix. I'm like, what the fuck is going on tonight? I love the spot though where Phoenix avoids the Doomsday device by doing a Matrix escape. That was dope. Penta absolutely miscues a spike pile driver. I'm telling you, everything was off. Everything was off. Mox unmasks Penta, rolls him up for the win, but production didn't get it. Oh, but they did show Penta's face on television, though. They did get that, but they didn't get the unmasking, but they showed Penta's face on TV, though. Hey, all right, great job, everyone. Pats on the back. Been a while since Penta didn't lose a match because of his mask, right? Wasn't there a time where they were like always turning his mask around and shit like that? You had that every week, and it's like, oh, come on now. And after the match, the BCC beat up on the Lucha Bros. No one comes out for the save. You'll notice, I'm just thinking of something here. I'm calling this a very disappointing episode of Dynamite. I don't think it was good. And look who was missing. Who was missing on this card that you usually have on Dynamite? And I'm sitting here and I'm going, let's fucking go. This is great. Your international champion, Orange Cassidy. The workhorse was not on the show. He was not on the show. And I'm sitting here telling you, yeah, this show is... Marvez is backstage with Kenny Omega, and he tells us, Omega does, that he will be revealing his Wembley plans next week. He put over the Bucks and FTR. So, keep telling you. Thawing out. The Mogul Embassy make it to the ring. Hey, you know what I noticed? The Mogul Embassy fucking rules, but that's not what I noticed. You see them all coming out together, and then you have the guys come out, Nana and the Gates and Cage, but then they bring out the crown jewel at the end, right? Don't ever forget that Swerve Strickland is the crown jewel here, if you will. So they bring him out after, and I'm looking at all these guys, and I'm like, Toa Liona leaning into being a wild man, right? He's gotten rid of the black stuff and now he's going full on wild man, and I'm down with that. Samoan SWAT, the Samoan SWAT team. Like, I'm okay with that. They all look, they all bring some, they all have a color to them, I like it. I'm really digging what this faction has become. Ever since, remember this was supposed to be Tully Blanchard Enterprises, and then they passed it off to Prince Nana, and since then, it's been a slow simmer, and it's just been adding, and just plopping Swerve into that, then being raised by Prince Nana, who gets on the mic. We need more Prince Nana heating up the crowd. Jesus Christ. Swerve takes takes the mic after Nana says he takes great pride in what he did to Nick Wayne last week, and AR Fox then takes the mic, calls out Darby, who comes out to no music, says he didn't call AR Fox. He says he didn't tell the whole story. You were going through some shit, and you were in a bad place, and I didn't want to come in and tell you and rub it in your face kind of thing that I was signed to AEW. And look, you're here. You made it all by yourself. I didn't even have to put in a word for you. He says he's glad that Fox has new friends, but he has friends too. Lights go out. It's Sting, who shows up out of the dark, swings the bat at people, threatens Strickland while pointing to the Wembley banner in the arena. Look, fine little promo segment. I thought this did exactly what needed to be done. I thought this was fine. I enjoyed it. I love this angle. I think it's great. This whole angle, Swerve and Darby, the AR Fox mixed into this. Nick Wayne will probably be getting some comeuppance at some point. Like all of this, everything we're sprinkling here, it's all making a beautiful, beautiful pate. Then the main event, Hikaru Shida successfully retained her AEW Women's World Championship against Anna Jay. I was not expecting this to be the main event. And in retrospect, I don't think it was a good idea for this to be the main event. And I'm sure a lot of people were happy that the women were main eventing. And by default, I was too. I was like, oh. But Anna Jay is not ready for these spots. And this is what I went on a rather intense sidebar this week on the Mr. Warren Hayes show about women's wrestling in North America. And everyone is so hell-bent on the numbers, on the quantity of women's matches, which is okay, but I feel no one really wants to have conversations about the quality. And we're not, this is a Dynamite review, not necessarily going to get into that either. There's a lot of stuff that I'd like to get into, but maybe this is not the place to do it. But this was not a good match. And it's only because we're not promoting the right people. And this should not have been in this place. Maybe Tony Khan did this to go, hey, look, 2 weeks in a row, I'm putting women in the main event. And a lot of people will go, good job, Tony. And yes, good job, Tony, but this wasn't the match that you should have put in a main event. God bless Anna Jay. I love Plunder Anna Jay. I think hardcore Plunder Anna Jay is very good. I think she gets it. And she can mask a whole lot of stuff that maybe she's not ready. A lot of stuff that shows that she's not a complete pro wrestling package yet. And I get at the same time, sometimes you have to throw people into the deep end. And that's also okay. I understand that too. I understand everything. Don't get me wrong. But there's also moments where you're like, look, okay, I appreciate you putting the women into a main event spot, but are you setting the women up to fail? And then you have an argument to come back over the next few weeks and say, look, the women don't draw. Well, of course not. You put Shida with Anna Jay. Unfinished product. Still very much green Anna Jay in a match, in a main event for a world title, and we're supposed to go, oh, all right, start rubbing our hands together and let's fucking go. The conversation that we need to have, and not just in AEW, and I'm talking in every promotion, every major league promotion in the United States and Canada, in North America. We need to have a conversation not only about quantity, but quality, and who is being pushed, and who is being set up in proper positions. Look, on Collision, we got a match that I'm looking forward to. At the tag team match, we have Mercedes Martinez and Diamante, who we haven't seen wrestle in a while. And to be honest, Diamante is one of those, she's very hit and miss. But then you have Statlander and Willow Nightingale. Willow Nightingale, who's blossomed this year and who's become so much more of a well-rounded pro wrestler, much more of the complete package we're talking about. I understand you don't necessarily want to burn, a big match with a Willow Nightingale, with with a rematch with Toni Storm, which also wouldn't make sense. But with some of your more solid workers on your roster, you don't necessarily want to burn this off. Well, then don't fucking put it. Don't put this match in the main event and pretend that it's main event quality, that it's main event caliber, because it's not. Everyone looks at it, it's like the tournament. Let's not call it a tournament, but nonetheless, the Bunny's not going forward. Sky Blue's not going forward. What are we doing? Yeah, it's like, who cares? This is not that, it's not compelling. Again, I understand everything. Sometimes you just need, your top people need matches to continue to establish themselves. I understand all of that. The optics of putting this in the main event here created an extra layer of, if this was lower on the card, guaranteed I wouldn't be spouting all of this off. Just like, but there's optics to this. There's optics to the fact that this will probably not do a good quarter hour, first and foremost, and the match was not good. So everyone who has an axe to grind against women's wrestling will be able to focus on that, setting people up to fail. And we saw it this weekend at SummerSlam. This past weekend at SummerSlam, we saw it. And now I'm seeing the same thing again. We're setting people up to fail for creating these main event world title matches with people who are not ready to be in that spot. That's my review. An entirely skippable edition of Dynamite. Nothing to write home about. Nothing happened. Nothing great. If you want to see Rob Van Dam have a good little showing, you're more than welcome. I think it works. That was my highlight of the night. Anyway, that's where we're at right now. Listen, I will leave you on that. I will be back very soon with more of my G1 Climax 33 coverage. It's coming to a close, folks. We're almost done. I got to catch up on the quarterfinals that happened earlier today. And then we have the semifinals this weekend as well as the finals. So that's all coming to a head. Otherwise, I will also be here on Sunday for my Collision review. So there's still a lot of stuff happening. So wherever you decide to come back, I'll see you next time.